Okay, I do see that we are at the top of the hour, and so I'd like to formally welcome everyone to our community information meeting for the Port of Nome modifications. I am Hunter Merritt, and I am helping to facilitate this virtual community information meeting and would like to welcome everyone to the virtual space. It isn't optimal. We like to do these kinds of things in person if possible, but it is also nice to be able to welcome everyone from far away, and that's where I am, is actually far away. I am not up in Nome, Alaska myself. I am in the lower 48, but I am here with you virtually, and I'm here to help facilitate our community information meeting today. I want to walk through a few orientation slides and let everyone know that this is being recorded. So our intent is to have the recording go through the presentation and have the recording be made available on the YouTube site, which I will put in chat. And if you don't know where chat is, you will after these slides. I also am going to hopefully have everyone that has a speaking role in our presentation portion have the ability to mute and unmute their own line, but I ask your patience if there's a little bit of a delay. I'll just find the buttons and push the right buttons to have the microphone handed to you, such as it is. And then at the end of our presentation, we'll have opportunities for folks to raise their hands and ask questions. That said, this is being recorded, so I'm going to get us started right now with an agenda. As I mentioned, this is being recorded and we're intending to put this up on YouTube at our Alaska Core website that you see here. If you are only on the phone, and I see that several folks have phone numbers only, this same slide deck should be made available on our website, so you should be able to navigate to it. And if you're having any difficulty finding those, please, let us know and we'll get these slides to you. But once again, this welcome to everyone and having a technology check is intended to make sure that we got everybody here with a speaking role so that the presentation that we give, the recording is something that we can make cleanly available to you after this meeting. So after this technology check, we'll do some introductions, get an overview of Port of Nome project, and we have a lot of subject matter experts here who are hoping to convey where we are in the process. And then if you have questions or comments, we're encouraging the use of the chat space, and we can go back and have a conversation based on what we see in chat. And then for anyone who's on the phone, we appreciate your patience. We'll open up lines for folks to ask their own questions if they need to in that version. The wrap up at this will be whenever we are kind of done, we're done. I would like to make sure that we keep the room open for anyone who comes in late. So I'll be the last person in the room and folding up the virtual chairs and turning off the virtual lights. But we'll go as long as we need to have the conversation be productive, and if there are follow-ons, we'll give you some contacts that you can reach via email or telephone. Okay, so when you get to the point, you are going to be speaking if you're hoping to speak, and those of you who have a speaking role here should know by now where the mute button is, but if not, it's down on the lower left. And if you have any difficulty with audio, just to the right of that word unmute, there's a little chevron, and you can switch audio to a telephone if you need to. I just want to point that out. It's kind of an important thing to know that you might be muted on your phone and muted in the space. So if you're speaking and we can't hear you, we might ask for you to check two places. So there's your mute button and unmute button. Right now, again, this is set on automatic mute for the audience, but we'll open up lines later. In order to participate, we do encourage your use of the participant list. So if you find that on the lower right-hand corner and click it, you can see who's here, and then you can open up a chat and should be able to chat with everyone. We would encourage you to post comments and chats and questions to everyone. And then if you have any difficulty or any questions for me, my name's Hunter Merritt. There's also a Hunter test I'm using just to be sure that I'm sending and receiving, but the Hunter Merritt, you can send a question to having to do with logistics. I hope that is evident for you, and we'll test your acumen with it by asking you to state your name and group when we do a round of introductions so that we can see who all is in the room. There may be multiple people on a single login. So if there are multiple people in the room with you, we'll ask that you give a little bit of a roll call or a roster of who's with you in the room. I'm going to move on to the next slide and then just say, if you're on the phone and only listening to this, we're really hoping that you would be that you'd share your name and your affiliation or your group. So when we get to that point where people are speaking, if you don't mind, please identifying yourself each time you speak so we know who all's here. For phone participants, *6 is a mute and unmute function. And then we can test also your ability to find your own name in the participant list. And thank you, Brian. I see your private chat, and I got to get on that and make you a co-host. Thank you for the chat. I'll say that you can raise your own hand by hovering over your own name in the participant list, and there should be a little hand icon. So if you have a question or a comment and you want to get into the queue, that may be a way that we can identify you, and we'll try to call on you. With that, keeping my fingers crossed that we have everyone who is here has the ability to find that mute button, I'd like to hand the virtual microphone over to Mayor Hanlon and say welcome, and we'll go from here forward with some opening comments. Mayor Hanlon, are you with us?
I am, thank you, and good morning to everybody. Thanks for joining. This is another exciting day for our community as milestones continue to be met. Design progresses towards the long-anticipated construction of the nation's first deep draft port in the Arctic, located here in Nome. There's much interest and some questions that remain, and I want to thank the Corps of Engineers for hosting this meeting to provide additional information to the community on the project design status, the timeline of completing this endeavor, and it being available to serve the needs of the city, the state, the nation, and international traffic as well. While it's taken some time and patience to get us to this point, the vision and need has long existed. When the current Port of Nome configuration was constructed a couple of decades ago, it was recognized the core asset would require expansion in the future as changes in vessels, cargo requirements, traffic patterns, local commerce, fishing, and subsistence activities continued. In the ensuing time, we have seen many of these anticipated changes, as well as the more recent effects of global warming and international interest in the Arctic, and that just increases the need and adds to the benefit of this project. I'm but one in a long line of mayors of Nome who have strategized, supported, and lobbied for the project now in the forefront. It's only appropriate that I recognize the visions of my predecessors, Mayors Leo Rasmussen, Denise Michaels, and the late Richard Benville, who many of you may know as Hello Central, who were all steadfast proponents. With cyclical changes in council members, city management, and the Port Commission, we must also acknowledge and thank our Port Director, Joy Baker, working with our city manager, Glenn Steckman, for her tireless efforts and being the glue that held us all together. The City of Nome and the Corps have a long history of working hand in hand to meet the needs of Nome and the greater Alaska community. Soon the expanded deep draft Arctic port at Nome will serve yet a greater purpose as final stones are deposited in the water, safe moorage, support facilities, and this infrastructure comes online. I look forward to this update to the community and appreciate the time of everyone involved in this meeting today. And again, thanks and good day.
Thank you so much, Mayor Handland. I appreciate your opening comments. I will mention a little housekeeping item. It did turn off videos, and that's just in order to preserve bandwidth. So I apologize for not being able to put a face to a name for anyone who doesn't have that benefit, but we're hoping that we'll see you soon. I am going to hand it off now to Colonel Brickner, hoping that she can find our mute button and the mic and say welcome to Colonel Brickner.
I think I found it.
Okay.
Thank you for that, and good morning to everyone, and thank you all for dialing in to participate. Thank you all for allowing me a few moments at the start of this important meeting to introduce myself and provide some opening comments. Before I begin, I wanted to acknowledge, the continued COVID pandemic that's impacting our families and communities, and we greatly appreciate your time and commitment with all of that going on to participate in this information sharing meeting, which we hope will result in a construction project that provides benefits and increased security for your families and your community in the future. Just a little about myself. I moved into the deputy commander role this past summer. While the nation and the globe as a whole continue to deal with the COVID pandemic, I believe that this pandemic has stretched out to cover years, that it's caused a lot of us to reflect on the importance of our family and our community in our lives. Public health measures and social distancing have forced us to find new ways to make connections and to establish trusting relationships. We've stepped away from that in-person connection, and we're all learning how to build virtual collaboration and synchronization. And a key to building that trust is creating and taking advantage of the opportunities that we have to engage often, to share meaningfully, and to listen thoughtfully. This is my first time living in Alaska, and every day has brought a new adventure. It's a beautiful and diverse state that offers endless opportunities for exploration if you take advantage of them. And as I've had the opportunity to travel to our array of project sites, I've also gained an appreciation for the Alaska District's relationship with the entire Alaska community through our Civil Works program, as well as our regulatory and FUDS programs. I couldn't be more pleased to be serving Alaska as we move into the design phase of this project. Through continued collaboration and partnership, we hope to develop a design that reduces your community's storm risk, provides the community with opportunities for continued economic development, and helps ensure that your traditional cultural and subsistence practices are protected for generations to come. This project will allow for economic opportunities in the region and support the long-term viability of surrounding villages. Nome finds itself at the tip of an evolving world, and Alaska's leadership has fought hard for this project, as evidenced by its inclusion in the Infrastructure, Investment, and Jobs Act. Please rest assured that we are an organization that is focused on quality and committed to providing world-class facilities for our partners and customers in Alaska. I want to re-emphasize my appreciation of your time and efforts participating with us in the meeting this week. The district will continue to prioritize our commitment to engaging our partners creatively and to the best of our ability as we strive to keep your community and ours safe and healthy. The core values transparent and open engagements that lead to meaningful discussion and mutual exchange of information. We're hopeful that we can meet face-to-face again soon, but in lieu of that, this is an amazing forum, and again, thank you all for dialing in. In closing, I'd like again to thank the community for the opportunity to introduce myself. I'm looking forward to working with the community members and organizations of Nome, as well as meeting our trust responsibility to the Alaska Native communities of the Bering Straits region as we move forward in this project.
Thank you so much, Colonel Brickner, and appreciate you being here. I'd like to make sure that Kendall Campbell is on the line so I can be sure that she has a co-host privilege here to mute and unmute, and I'd like to make sure I get a mic check there, and then also have her introduce any tribal representatives.
Hi, good morning. Thank you, Hunter, and good morning, everyone on the line. I do know that we have several Alaska Native tribal members on the call today. I can see several people, and people are calling in, as well as several other Alaska Native organizations and corporations on the line. I did want to just take a moment and ask if President Carmen is on the line from Known Eskimo Community. I know that you often call in on the phone, so hopefully you can unmute. And again, you can unmute your phone manually, or if it's not working, just press *6.
And my caveat to that is simply that if that is not the case for the telephone, I don't know if you have the last 2 digits of that telephone number, or if it's familiar to you, but I might just open up the mics for the telephone only participants for a moment. So stand by.
Thank you. And as Hunter is working our technology, I'd like to also invite any other tribal and elected Native leaders that are on the call. If you wanted to take a moment and just make a short opening statement, please feel free to take this opportunity. We welcome your opening comments as well. Thank you.
Yeah, I do see a 907 with a 00 at the end, and that microphone is unmuted on my end, but it may be muted on the other end of the line, kind of like one of those, your hose, you got the spigot and then you got the handle at the other end, so there might be 2 mute buttons.
And again, if we can see the unmute, then that means that your phone is muted.
Yep.
We can always return back as well. And there will be plenty of opportunity following the presentation as we begin the question and answer period as well for any comments or general statements. I just wanted to take the opportunity to allow for any of the Alaska Native leaders to make a statement. We do recognize that as we have brought our experts to the room, that we are also talking to and you are participating as experts who know this area better than anyone from time immemorial. So please do speak up when we open up all of the mics for everyone to participate and talk. Thank you so much. Over.
Okay. If one workaround possibly is if there's a first name associated on the participant list and or you have a ability to raise a hand and you're in the WebEx, you can raise a hand if you have a question or type a chat. I would be happy to address that. So Kendall, I'm going to move to the next slide in hopes that we're able to give our presentation, but as Kendall mentioned, we'll have a lot of time for questions and answers, comments, and at the end of the presentation as well. So I want to shift gears to Joy Baker, and I have given you a co-host spot, so I hope you can find that mute button, introduce yourself, and tell us who all is here from the city.
Good morning, everyone. Again, thanks for joining us. We're pretty stoked about the project. My name is Joy Baker, and I am the project manager on the city side for this port expansion project with the Corps. As John mentioned, it's been we've had quite a few hurdles to clear, but we're thrilled to be at this point in the game now and so close to the goal line. As of course, the top of our structure team on the city side is the mayor. He also serves as the utilities manager, but in this role here, he serves as the mayor in guiding some of the bigger decisions and along with the council for steps to take forward. And speaking of the council, we've had a number of councils involved in the progress of this project, but the Nome Common Council we have serving now, as you can read, and for those on the phone, it's Gerald Brown, Mark Johnson, Doug Johnson, Adam Martinson, Sigvana Topcock, and Scott Henderson. On the Port Commission side, they've done a significant amount of work. His previous Port Commissions have worked tirelessly to get us to this point. The folks that are serving now on the Port Commission are Jim West as chairman, Charlie Lean as vice chair. We have Shane Smith-Heisler, Derek McClarty, Russell Rowe, Gay Sheffield, and Drew McCann, as these groups continue to work on ensuring that we reach the goal line, not only on phase 1, but on phases 2 and 3 to complete the entire project. Management starts with Glenn Steckman. He's our city manager. Folks, most of you know he's been here about working into his 3rd year. He's the day-to-day management operations over our day-to-day decisions that we make, little decisions, big decisions with the council and the mayor. We all kind of work together to achieve those markers. And I serve under Glenn Steckman. We both manage Lucas Stotts, who's our harbor master, and also for the project, he's our field coordinator. City engineer under contract is John Blees. He's a project coordinator. He works with, we have Brian Hudson. Both, looks like I omitted, Brian Hudson and Doug Kenley are with P&D engineers. They are designing the docks and roads and utilities for the city side. Brian's a project manager and Doug Kenley's handling quality control on their side. On the other side for utilities, we have our local NJUS assistant manager and engineer, Ken Morton. He's a utility coordinator and working with CRW, who is contracted to the utilities for engineering. And we have Carl Hulse as the contract manager for this project. And Mike Leganici, God, I hope I got that right, as the project manager and lead on the water and sewer. There are many, many more people that have, as the mayor mentioned, that have made this project possible, but you would not have been able to read all their names on this slide. Right now, this is the project team we have working with the Corps on phase 1. Thank you.
Excellent. And shifting now to our project delivery team, PDT. If we use an acronym and you aren't familiar with it, you can always ask in chat. It's our, we always have a hard time with acronyms in the Army, I'm sad to say. So PDT, project delivery team, includes these folks. And since we weren't using video, we thought we'd put a face to a name on this slide. I'd like to call on Jathan to introduce his team. I think you're going to hear from a few of these other folks as well. You've already heard from Kendall. So Jathan, are you with us?
I am. Thank you, Hunter. Meg, just wanted to introduce those who will be speaking today or have some sort of who have been, I guess, assigned to this role here for the past couple months. But since we don't have the video, as Hunter said, I wanted to give you kind of a little taste of what we look like, so we're just not a voice in your ear. But Hunter and Kendall have introduced themselves already. We have Nathan Knapp, who's the Deputy Chief of ECO. He'll be joining us. Merlin Peterson is a design lead on the core side. Steve Howard is over the program management and civil works. John Budnick is public affairs, and you might have seen some of the items that he's put out regarding the meeting this week. We have Kelly Eldridge, who's our archaeologist. Chris Floyd, environmental resources. Jan Dyke is the planner, and myself, Jason Garrett, the project manager. On the right side of the screen here, you can see, I guess you could say the first wave of the project delivery team from our PMs down to our internal BCUS coordinators, cost. There's a lot of people involved to make a project like this go forward. And just like Joy said, for each one of these names you see on this screen, you could probably double that for the amount of support that comes to each one of these project delivery team members to make this project go forward successfully and delivering the quality that we expect ourselves to bring to the table here. But Hunter, with that, I think we can go ahead and turn the time back to you.
Awesome. Okay, so now is the time we get to test our acumen with the chat. You've heard from Joy with the City of Nome, of course, and the mayor as well. You've heard some of our team members and of course, Colonel Brickner and the Corps of Engineers side of the house. We know, as Kendall mentioned, that there are a lot of groups, Alaska Native communities, ANSCA Corporation representatives. Perhaps you are affiliated with one of these groups. Perhaps you're with community industry stakeholder group. Perhaps you're one of our federal family. Perhaps you're with the state. You may not be with any of these. What I'd like to do is invite folks to chat their name and their group. And if there are multiple people in a room with you, if you don't mind putting names, plural, and affiliations, plural, in chat. Once again, that's the lower right-hand corner of the participant list. So we're hoping that folks will find that and type into the chat. I, once again, will kind of send a little request to unmute just a few telephone numbers that I see and invite you to say hello at this point and introduce yourself just so that we can make sure the mic's working. So you should see or hear, those of you on the phone, something that sounds like your request has been sent, and you would press *6 to unmute your line, introduce yourself. Thank you, Diana. Thank you, Anma. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Thank you, Doug. Excellent. People are finding the chat space, and this is really helpful because this is where we're going to also look for your questions and comments as the presentation goes. Anyone on the phone unmuted and want to introduce themselves at this point? Okay. If you're listen-only mode or if your phone's attached and you're also in the web, you might look through there and say, yeah, I'm the one with the phone number 907 ending in 68. That's me. And then that way we can rename you in the WebEx. We do hope that lots of folks are here and that are represented. And if there's someone who's not here that you want to make sure knows about this, please do continue to forward this recording. I'm going to move on to our presentation. Thank you, Jeanette. Thank you, David, for introducing yourselves in chat. I'm going to move on unless there are any phone-only participants wanting to say hello. Good morning. Okay. Not hearing any. I hope that is just a function of introversion and not technology challenges. If there are technology challenges, let me know, please. I'd like to hand it off to Jathan, I believe, to open this first slide that you should see, slide number 11, if you're following along on your own slides, which are available at the website. Jathan, the floor is yours.
All right, thank you. Just as another reminder on that chat, Hunter has been updating that with the location of these slides. So if you want to go in and grab those, just scroll up through that chat bar and you can go ahead and download them. But as we move forward here into the slides and into an introduction of the 35% design, I wanted to, and for those on the phone, I apologize you can't see this, but what we're looking at right now is kind of a bird's eye view, a satellite eye view of the Port of Nome, and kind of focusing in on the outer basin and the deep water basin. That's where our work's going to be as we look to extend the West Causeway, as we look to dredge out the outer basin and the deep water basin, and then finally to work on these breakwater there's a lot of effort that's gone into this. There's as you can, I'm sure you're aware as well, a lot of legislative actions that have taken place to kind of direct and allow this work to take place. So as we look at where we are now and where we're going, each one of those, the introductions that we just gave you to part of our teams are going to walk through and show you how we've taken a big project, stepped it down into 3 phases, into a west causeway, into a dredging, and into an east breakwater. And the reason we did that was to make this an accomplishable task. It's a large task, but we can do it. We've got the team members that can do it. And with that, I think we can go ahead and walk into the next slides of what got us to this point and where we're going. Jim?
Hello, Jathan. Can everybody hear me okay?
Loud and clear.
All right, sounds good. I switched over to the headset because my phone was crackly. As noted earlier, I'm Jan Dyke. I was the planner on the project from the get-go of the feasibility study, and I continue to be involved today. And I'd like to make a statement that, hey, I'm really happy to be here. And to be honest, I didn't expect to be involved in a public meeting at this time because typically projects of this magnitude take much longer to get to this phase after the study starts. I think I can say that the efforts by the Corps and the sponsor have made this happen, along with significant support by leadership by both entities. As the United States' only deep water port in the Arctic, Nome provides a critical link between the communities of the region and much in Alaska and beyond, as the Lieutenant Colonel mentioned earlier. The existing port facilities in the region are overcrowded and/or have insufficient draft to accommodate the newer and deeper drafting vessel traffic that's expected as the Arctic is going to be opened up and is opening up. Since maritime travel is probably the most cost-effective method of transportation for fuel and goods to the region, a robust and efficient transportation hub at the Port of Nome is foundational to the long-term viability of communities of the region, jobs, etc. The port modifications that Jathan is managing and moving forward is the intent is to improve navigation efficiency, to provide safe, reliable mooring for vessels at the Port of Nome. And the overall goal is to reduce navigation costs and the costs of commodities, including the cost of commodities critical to the viability of communities in the region, including fuels, construction supplies, equipment, and the lower costs of these fuels and goods can free up available cash that can help support the subsistence lifestyle that's so common in Nome in the region. One of the ways of improving navigation efficiency is to increase moorage capacity and available depth in the port, which allows larger and deeper draft vessels to access the port. Just more efficient to use larger and deeper draft vessels. The objectives of this study is to recommend a project that provides a safe, reliable, and efficient waterborne transportation systems for the movement of commerce and to support national security and recreation at the Port of Nome. The proposed project objectives include reducing draft limitations to increase fuel transport capabilities and efficiency to satisfy fuel demand and reduce transportation costs. Reducing drafts limitations also better support multiple marine missions, cargo transportation, search and rescue, emergency and oil spill response, and including natural resource exploration. Support access to natural resources for subsistence purposes within Nome and the region by increasing navigation efficiency in the region. is paramount to helping reduce the costs of goods and services in the region. I don't really have much more to point out at this point. Jathan, I think I can hand this over to you unless there are questions or comments.
Okay, well, we'll go to the next slide.
Okay,
Merlin?
make sure that Merlin is with us. And Merlin, are you able to find that mute button and introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm here. Okay, my name is Merlin Peterson, and I'm the project design lead for the Corps of Engineers. I'm going to give you a brief overview of the phase construction of the Nome Harbor Modification project and the current 35% design. The Harbor Modification project was broken into 3 phases for contract purposes. Phase 1, which you can see on the left, includes the stub breakwater removal, the Causeway Extension, dock construction, and the utility improvements that would be put in place along the causeway. Phase 2, shown in the middle figure, this phase includes, the deep water basin and the expansion of the existing outer basin. Figure 3 on the right phase 3 includes the east breakwater removal, future expansion of the outer basin, and the construction of a new east causeway. Okay, as stated earlier, the phase 1 contract will include the stub breakwater removal, the causeway extension, dock construction, and utility improvements. Currently, the Corps is conducting our 35% review of the causeway extension and stub breakwater removal plans and specifications as part of that phase 1 contract. The full phase 1 design will also include the local service facilities, including the new L-shaped dock and the utility improvements along the existing and the expanded causeway. As I mentioned earlier, phase 2 and phase 3 contracts will dredge the new deep water basin and expand the outer basin. Okay, so before the causeway extension can begin, the stub breakwater will need to be removed, and that area of removal is outlined in red on the figure on the right. Additionally, the primary and secondary armor layers off of the existing causeway head will have to be removed to allow the extension of the causeway. The L-shaped causeway extension will extend the length of the existing causeway by 3,480 feet. The causeway extension cross-section is similar to the existing causeway. A road section is provided on the crest of the causeway section. The seaside armor layer will be made up of 15 feet of 22-ton armor stone, and the harborside armor layer will be made up of 10 feet of 8-ton quarry stone armor. So this concludes my slides, and I guess I'll turn it back to you, Hunter, so you can help P&D with their presentation of the dock design.
Yeah, no, I'm glad to hand it off to our next speaker. That's Brian Hudson. And Brian, are you able to unmute your line?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
I can, and just to save myself and everybody else the hassle. I'm just gonna unlock all the mute lines, and just, you know, if folks just, if we have a hot mic, we can just stop and call out a hot mic. So Brian, I'm going to hand it off to you. And do you want to drive slides? Do you want me to drive them for you?
You can just drive the slide.
Okay.
So, yeah, my name is Brian Hudson. I'm with P&D Engineers, and I'm the project manager for the design of the new sheet pile dock and roadway that will be constructed out on the Causeway Extension that Merlin has just been telling you about. You can see on the slide on the figure on the left here that the current layout for the facilities is to essentially put a new sheet pile wall along most of the interior harbor side of the new deep water basin. It'll provide approximately 2,000 feet of additional deep draft dock space for the Port of Nome. In addition to the dock, we'll have a roadway that extends the length of the new causeway and provides access to the entire face and upland storage staging areas for the dock. And really at this stage, the design of the structure is going to be very similar to what you guys have at the existing outer harbor right now, like Mid Dock and City Dock and West Gold Dock. It's going to utilize flat sheet pile construction and gravel surfacing. That's the brief overview of the design of the structural portion. I guess, Hunter, you can hand it over to Carl Holtz at CRW for a brief rundown of the project utilities.
Okay. Carl?
Yes, can everybody hear me?
Yes, sir.
Oh, good deal. Well, thank you, Hunter. Thanks, Brian. So as Brian mentioned, my name is Carl Holtz. I work with CRW Engineering Group out of Anchorage, and I'm the manager for the utility design effort for the Causeway. So in addition to the physical dock features that Brian described, the project will include a utility corridor that will house multiple buried utilities for servicing vessels and dock operations. As you can see on the slide in the section portrayed there, the planned utilities include an all-season circulating water line, sewage force main for accepting future wastewater flows, a minimum of 3 pipelines, fuel pipelines for diesel, Jet A, and gasoline for unloading and loading of fuel barges and ships, power and communication lines, and high mast or stadium type lighting for nighttime operations. And as you can see on the plan view or the view from above on the left-hand side of the slide, at multiple locations along the causeway, there will be service laterals that extend from the corridor out to the dock face to hard stands. And the hard stands will provide water, fuel, and electrical hookups for vessels at each berth. And that concludes my presentation. So thank you, Hunter.
Righty. So, Jathan, I'm going to hand it back to you for what we're expecting to be next steps. Once again, for folks that have questions about the details of this that you've seen so far, type your questions in chat. After the end of this presentation, we'll take a quick human needs break, and then we'd like to take a look at what questions you have or comments you have. So I'm seeing David and some others maybe putting some chat questions in. That's great. Jathan, I'm handing it off to you to let us know what the next steps are.
Okay, yeah. So just wanted to provide kind of a timeline so everybody has an idea of where we're actually going with this. So West Causeway Phase 1 design timeline. We just completed the 35%, which is some of the items that you just saw in some of the sections and slides. We're looking to have the Phase 1 100% design complete by January 2023. Which will allow for us to get a solicitation out on the street by March of 2023 and we're hoping to have or planning, I should say, to have a construction award in September of 2023. Now, with the September award, we'll likely have several months of some pre-construction items that the contractor would need to take care of, and that would put us right into the winter time frame. So we believe that the actual physical winter construction construction would start in the spring of 2024 and then wrap up in the fall of 2027. Now, that does include, if you're wondering, that includes winter shutdown periods from 2024 to 2027. So some of the ongoing efforts that you may have already witnessed on site is the geophysical investigations took place back in October and November and have wrapped up, and that was to give us an overall understanding using sonar of the area, so we could know what some of the subsurface was made of. And next week we'll begin the geotech investigative drilling items, getting some bores and confirming geophysical findings. And so that's all in support of phase 1, and then we'll use that information into phase 2 as well. And you can see here that phase 2 design is scheduled to begin November of this year. And so there's a lot of effort happening right now for these items. But some of the items that these are just the big milestones. There's a lot of stuff in between that drives some of the timelines as far as physical models that are made, and other investigative studies that we need to make sure take place as we hit each one of these 35, 65, 95, 100% milestones. So with that, we will move into the break. Hunter?
Okay. So, yeah, we've been sitting for about 45 minutes, and I know for myself that we're made to stretch our legs a little bit. I am inviting you to take just a few minutes of a break. We'll come back just in about 3 or 4 minutes. I'll pause the recording and then start the recording. And in the break time, after you stretch your legs, come back and type a question in. We'd like to use the chat to read off questions. We'd invite you to unmute and introduce yourself and read your own question if you like. But let's take a break first, and we'll get back at 10 minutes before the hour.
Or from Merlin. Over.
I think actually this is Brian Hudson at P&D. I'm the project manager for the sheet pile design. I think I can probably field that one. The sheet pile design that we currently have is designed for the 40-foot basin. There's nothing currently in the criteria to design the sheets or design the structure to go deeper than that. Though if you did want to dredge deeper than that in the future, the wall would remain stable. You could either reduce slightly the capacity of the dock to go with a deeper draft, so it could hold less gravel stacked up, or lighter cranes, lighter equipment, or if you needed to maintain the same capacity, then you would be able to extend the capacity by making some minor modifications and adding a few extra sheets to the anchor walls that hold the dock into place. And hopefully that's a brief and concise enough description to answer the question.
Thank you so much. And again, we'll have plenty of time as we begin and move through the questions that we're hearing in chat to fall back or follow up on questions that we've already asked as well. Also, please speak up or write in the chat if you would like us to go back to one of the illustrations or one of the images that we showed in the presentation as we're giving the answer. We're happy to do so. That's something that we can easily do. Okay, the next question from Commander Rob Bergstresser is, under the utilities, does the PowerCom connection include both phone and internet lines? I'll open that up. I know that
Yeah,
that might be.
Kendall, this is Carl Holtz with CRW, and I see, I believe Ken Morton with NJUS is on the line as well. But the simple answer is that at this time, at this level of design, the utility design includes a conduit capable of conveying all power and communication lines that may be necessary or desired in the project. So I don't know that a final decision has been made on exactly specific comm connections at this point. We're pretty early in the design, but at this point there's capacity to carry whatever is desired in the final design. And I don't know if Ken has anything further on that or not, but if not, we can hopefully that answers the question appropriately.
Thank you, Carl. This is Ken with Nome Utilities. So our plan is to extend raceway from the end of the existing causeway and to populate part of that raceway with comm gear for city and utility purposes. But then we will also have vacant ducts available for the comm companies to make use of.
Thank you. Appreciate your answers there. All right, the next question in chat came from Chris Salerno, and he asked, is there an estimate on when phase 2 will be completed? Jason, that might be one for you.
Sure, I could take that. I should have put that on the slide. I apologize. I didn't know how far to take that. So phase 2 construction right now, we're planning on also wrapping up in that kind of the end of construction season 2027. So I have October of 2027 listed here. That would give phase 1, the causeway, about a 1.5 construction season before any dredging began in the basin area.
Great. Thanks, Jason. And I was just alerted to the fact that I might have missed a question from Gay Sheffield. And she asked, we heard that the ACE recently was awarded $250 million for the port project. Can you please explain what this is being spent on? Thank you.
Sure, I can take that one too. And so the $250 million that everybody saw as part of the recent legislature, that'll be used when we initiate construction. And so that's not being spent right now and won't be spent until we have the construction awards.
All right, again, and we'll have plenty of time to follow up on these answers and questions in the question when we open it up to people to unmute. So if you have follow-up questions, please, you can feel free to chat them or just wait until we open them up for further discussion. All right, the next question I have is from Brett Gunderson from Haskell Corporation. And he asked, will there be any improvements and or expansions to the existing upland tag farm? And is that one for you, Joy, and your team?
Yes, I can speak to that. Hi, Brett. This is Joy. Under the existing construction scope for all phases of this project, there are no elements to go on shore and make any improvements. Anything on the shore side will be done separately from this project. Over.
Thank you, Joy. Appreciate that. Okay, the next question I have is from Jeanette Kolsch, and I hope I said that correctly. And she has a two-part question, so I'll go through each and then we'll separate them out. Are there any plans to train local people for employment opportunities during and after construction, so that there will not be a huge influx in outside labor. Part 2 of her question is, also in the past, large projects have come to Nome and contractors took up housing in the community, which is very limited, displacing and causing housing prices to increase. What will be done to address this issue during this construction? So that's a 2-part question, and I think probably Joy, you can start, and if anybody else wants to chime in, that would be great. Thank you.
Thanks, Kendall. This is Joy. Hi, Jeanette. For the first part of your question, I don't believe there are any plans under the Corps' construction project, which is what this presentation is about, is the core project constructing phase 1 with the city as a partner. I mean, Kendall, this is actually, you guys need to weigh in here. I've never seen the Corps do training in advance of a project in a particular community. There are elements that can be discussed with the local partners that I know that there's a large group of you between NACTEC and the college and Coeric and I thought there was one more group that are talking about being able to train folks in operating and welding and diving, those types of things. And I think that's wonderful. We should probably discuss it. But if you're asking, Jeanette, if the Corps is going to come in and do that, I don't believe so. And they can react to my statement. And to your second part, the housing issue, there's been a lot of discussion about that, and you probably know it's on the table these last few months with the city and the council. I know the city manager meets regularly, and he's on the line. Glenn could weigh in too, with different folks in town about how to address the housing issue. But at this point for this project, if the housing issue is not resolved by the time the project is solicited, I understand that the Corps is going to require the bidders to bring housing up, man camps and things like that. It was, that's been on the books since the feasibility study, because this issue was raised way back and the Corps had no desire, nor did the city, to put any further strain on the local housing problem. So it has been since we were in the middle of the feasibility study. The plan has been to have the contractor bring in housing.
Joy,
Yes.
it's Glenn.
Oh, hey. Go ahead.
The city right now is working with various organizations to start. The first phase is training truck drivers, which we need in general in the community. It's working with the larger native corporations and to provide training to get CDL drivers and to be able to learn how to drive heavy vehicles. We've also been talking with additional training with this particular project in mind, but there are also other needs in the city to provide training for the local workforce. And we are working with NACTEC and with the college and other organizations in Coeric. As to the housing, the city has also made as a legislative priority. We're anticipating there'll be 40 or so people at a time, 50 people at a time working up here to make sure that we can provide additional housing, because there's a general shortage in housing in general. But that is also, as Joy has indicated to you, is going to be part of the requirements. There has been some discussion, okay, can we work with the potential contractor to build more permanent housing that could also be available and left as part of the after the project. So I think the administration, the mayor, the commission, the port commission, we're all concerned that we do not want, we already know the limited housing stock that is available, and our intention is this project is not going to have an impact on that limited stock. So I hope that reassures, and then we are looking for obviously opportunities to train folks here in our community to be able to provide a workforce availability. Thank you.
Thank you, Joy and Glenn. I appreciate you taking that question first off. And then Jason, I want to hand it over to you to add any further statements on particularly the first part of Jeanette's question. Over.
The training piece. So as in regard to training, I've never seen anything where the Corps has come up and offered training opportunities in construction or wherever it might be. However, what I have observed is on large scale projects that are in remote locations, one of our previous contractors hired several local, I guess a workforce of several locals that were, it was easier to have them out there. They knew the area. They offered a lot of insight to local conditions. And then during times of winter shutdown or whatever, we had somebody on site that was available and there. So I have seen that. So I would say that might be the best bet is when there is a construction award that you reach out and look for opportunities that way. And then I do want to add just a tiny piece, and Jan, you might need to speak up here too. But here in the next couple months, we'll be doing an analysis on the housing, and like Joy and Glenn have stated, like this has not been just brushed to the side. Try to learn from the past, and this has been one of the talking points for since I've been on here for 9 months on a monthly basis. So we are aware of the housing situation. We don't want to price anybody out. We don't want to have anybody kicked out. That's not the intention here. And then from that analysis, we'd be looking at what needs to go into our construction contract to ensure that doesn't happen. Over.
Yeah, Jason, this is
Thank you.
Jan Dyke. Hi, Kenneth. Yeah, Jason, you're right. Prior to solicitation, the Corps will do a work camp evaluation, look at available housing, other services, and my guess is they'll work closely with the city and other entities to develop that. And that will be the basis for requiring a work camp within the solicitation. Over.
Thank you, Jason and Jan. Thank you for those answers. All right, I'm going to go back to the questions that I had. I had one from Brent Gunderson, also from the Haskell Corporation. He also asked, how will bid solicitation be issued? I know I don't think we have anybody from our contracting here on the line, but Jan, that might be one that you can start us off. Thank you.
Actually, I'm going to start that off by punting it to Jathan because he's more involved, or if Steve Howard's on the line, he might be able to provide some insight. Better.
Oh yeah, this is Jathan again. So we'll be looking to go ahead and follow our normal procedures as far as solicitation goes. There'll be some notifications that go out, but that we intend to go full and open with this, and then award to the best value contractor for this effort. If there's something I'm missing in your question, maybe we can, yeah, go ahead.
Well, one of the things that I would add, this is Kendall playing my role of the tribal liaison side here, is that, one thing that the Alaska District is acutely aware of is that working in Alaska takes a unique set of skill sets and knowledge. And so, when Jason talks about getting the best and you can correct my terms, Jason, put it out for free and open competition, often it is our Alaska companies that kind of meet the mark in those instances, because they are the ones who have the experience, who understand what it is like to live and work in Alaska. So we can't necessarily point to them, but I just wanted to point that out, that is something recognized and we understand as well. Over. Steve, did you want to add anything there?
Kendall, were you talking to me? I'm sorry.
This is Steve Howard. I don't have anything to add. That Jason covered it well. We're still developing the plans and specifications and the acquisition plan to go along with that. Over.
Perfect. Thank you, Steve. Didn't mean to put you on the spot there, but always good to put you on the spot every once in a while. All right. Let me move on to the next question that I have on my list is from Todd Ostorfer. I hope I said that correctly, from Booth Allen. With regard to Jason's response, does that mean phase 1 and 2 will have some degree of concurrency, which I believe he's looking for? Are we overlapping in our phases? Jason?
I would say we would have some overlapping. However, we are aware that there's ongoing operations. We're aware that is the in and out traffic pattern for the inner harbor. So we'll have kind of items that some contractual language set up so that we provide access through and around the construction areas. There'll be traffic patterns. There'll be some items that we have to work through, but we are aware that there's a one way in and one way out, and we'll endeavor to make that as painless and seamless as possible.
Thanks, Jason. Moving on to our next question from Commander Rob Bergstresser. Would the L-shaped dock be available for use while dredging is underway? Jason, I believe that's another one for you. Over.
Yeah, that one would depend on how far we are away as far as completion dates go. If they're still working on the docks and the dredging portions at the same time, we'll probably have a few points of conflict in there, unless we start in the. Yeah, so I mean, that's I see what your point is here, but those are items that we're definitely looking at as a team on how we schedule this work so that we get the best use out of it and least impact to those that need to tie up.
All right, thank you, Jason. Oh, go ahead, Joy.
Yeah, this is Joy. Just to echo that, as he said, it depends on where they are. If they're off in the eastern portion of the basin, if you can see it on one of the drawings, it's going to be kind of square and then shoot off to the southeast. If they're working on the north or east side and there's suitable access with creating no safety risks, I suspect that we're going to let people tie up to the dock as long as they're not in the dredging contractor's way. We do that all the time now with the annual contractor we have. But we will work with the Corps and the contractor to make sure that if somebody needs to get in and get fuel, we can find a way to make it work without holding up the contractor. So we make a lot of those decisions on a regular basis because of the conditions we have. Also, for the the fact that the construction of the dock, the basin depth won't be achieved until the following season. Of course, anyone that is shallower than the surveyed depth will allow to use the L-shaped dock as well. But just to let you know, and operationally, we can usually manage those things. We manage those on site as long as there's no conflict. Over.
Thank you, Joy. I appreciate that. I also wanted to just point out to everyone who is joining us via the internet, to the left-hand side of your screen, there should be a little bubble there that has a couple of different things you can click on. One of them is a zoom in and zoom out control. So if you are having a hard time seeing anything, you can zoom in, zoom out. And then right above that, you should have the ability to go back and forth in the presentation on your own. So even though we are showing slide 21, if you'd like to see something or look at one of the illustrations we gave in the presentation, you can just click on the up and down arrows and you can go back and look at any illustration that you'd like in the presentation. Okay, the next question, and you can correct my pronunciation, please, is from Ukala. Oh, Tom, you can help me with this, please, if you chime in.
Sure, everybody.
Thank you so much. And your question is, the port is a great project and so glad advancing development. Can the Corps or city create points for local and regional business in the project contracting? And we touched upon that briefly, but this time let's start with the Corps, and I'll hand this over to you, Jason. Over.
Oh, am I there? Sorry, I hit something and lost everything for a minute.
We hear you, Jason.
Okay, good. Thank you. All right, so can the Corps or city create points for local and regional businesses in the project contracting? I'm not sure I'm understanding that question.
Sure, this is Ukule-sak. I just was thinking about, I'm a local business owner. I have a business called Northwest Planning LLC, and the port's a real opportunity to do a number of things, and there's, of course, other businesses. And local hire always becomes an issue, but there's also contracting for services for development. And as you develop bids and contract documents, is there a way to give local businesses and regional businesses points in that process so that there's a way to make sure the economic impacts of this project benefit the community and the region?
Let me take that. Yeah, go ahead, Steve.
So this is Steve Howard here. I was going to add on to that. So, Jason, maybe we can pass on the contracting specialist information. Pass that on here from the Corps side. And I would anticipate in our construction contract that we would have some small business participation goals to go along with the unrestricted contract award. So there would certainly be some degree of small business participation. And as far as the city contacts, I could pass that over to Joy.
Joy, if you're speaking, we have, you're muted on your own side.
Hi, everyone. This is Kelly Eldridge from the Corps, and I was double muted. Thank you. I just wanted to also note, in addition to what Jason and Steve said, is that the Alaska District does have a small business office, and their job is to specifically help local and regional businesses through the process of contract with the government contracting. So we can look up their contact information and provide that to folks and the city to give out to everyone as well. That might be helpful. Over.
Thanks, Kelly. That's a good addition there. But so if you don't mind emailing Jason Garrett, that he can put you in contact with those two contacts here at the Corps. And Joy, if you're able to unmute, we'll pass it back over to you.
While Joy is unmuting, I did want to just jump a question here. Jan added a follow-up question. I think Kelly touched upon this with talking about our small business program, but he asked, during or before solicitation, is there a way for local workers or entities to know who will or has bid on the project so they can contact them for work opportunities? Basically, how and when could this opportunity be identified or pursued? Nobody's speaking up. I think one of those things is working with, oh, go ahead.
I was going to say it's unlikely to know who has bid or will bid on the contract, even after contract award. It's part of the federal acquisition regulations. That info isn't necessarily released. There may be some pre-bid open or pre-solicitation meetings with the industry, and that might be a time to identify who's participating in that and may be likely to submit a bid. Over.
So,
thank you, Steve. And I'm go ahead,
Steve,
Jan.
this is Jan. So on the pre-solicitation meetings or whatever that entails, how is that advertised, or is it advertised? So how would somebody that could provide a service to the contractors that bid on this be aware of those, so they could gather those names and get involved early in the process, I guess?
So, and any of those meetings would be advertised through beta.sam, which is the federal website where all the federal procurements go through. And if your firm is registered with the federal government, I think you can sign up for automatic notices through that service. And if you're not on that service, maybe you can reach out to Jason, and he can put you in touch with our contracting specialist, who would be facilitating those meetings. Over.
And yes, Steve, this is Kendall. For those of you that are joining us via the web, I did put in our small business professional, her email address in the chat. Her name is Kathy Kinnett. I added an extra E there. And then for those of you who are just joining us via phone, again, you can contact Jason or myself, and we're more than happy to get you into contact with both Kathy as well as our other contract specialists.
Hey, Kendall, this is Joy.
Hi, Joy. Good to hear you. Go ahead.
No, I was distracted. I had something important that was on my plate for a second. So to the, trying to reach out to the contractors, I would recommend, and we can talk about this, on the city side internally, anybody, they're always welcome to give me a call. I can throw my number in the chat box. I'm always willing to talk about aspects of the project, but, there have been many contractors that have worked in our area, our region, and bring materials in and out of the project. I would suggest, in and out of the port. I would suggest getting a hold of a couple of them some of the bigger contractors and inquiring if they were to come to Nome and do a project such as this, what would they be looking for, and be looking for training on those positions, as well as looking into what the union requirements are going to be. Let's see, Jathan or Steve, do you guys know? I mean, your contracts how are they structured for union on the federal side? On the contractors?
Yeah. So I'll pass over to Jason, but I'm not sure, Joy. I know we have what's called the Davis-Bacon Act, which has the minimum wage rates for employees of contractors working on the projects. But as far as union participation, I'm unaware of how our contracts are structured with that if any requirement. Over.
I did see something recently from FEMA that talked about some new requirements coming down for federal projects requiring union works, but it didn't have a lot of information in it. I'll pass it along to some of the local folks to make sure everybody's dialed in, and I can even put you in contact, you guys, with some of the contractors that may be willing to chat with you and give you some insight. Over.
Thank you, Joy. That's really helpful. And again, with the contact information, I saw Kelly put in Kathy's phone number as well. We'll make sure that she's aware that there are questions and that we'll get her ready to hopefully answer the questions that you have. And again, you can contact her directly or go through Jason or myself to kind of facilitate that conversation as well.
Okay.
Okay.
And then for our team too, if there's anything that you're hearing, please jump in. Don't feel like it just has to be myself or Steve answering. Want to make sure that we get the best information we can out there at all times. So just wanted to give a heads up to that before we move on.
Well, thank you, Jason. And that opportunity, I think, is coming up next with our next question, but I did want to point out that Joy put her contact information in the chat as well. Thank you, Joy, for sharing that. So I'll move down to our next question, which comes again from Gay Sheffield. And she asked, how will disturbance to marine mammals be handled in the immediate area? Marine mammals are utilized as a food resource, both ESA listed and non-ESA listed cetaceans and pinnipeds. And so, Chris Floyd, would you like to take this question, please? Over.
Sure. This is Chris Floyd, the Corps of Engineers Environmental Coordinator. Our Marine Mammal Protection Act and Endangered Species Act coordination is still ongoing. We, because of the COVID travel restrictions, we missed part of our surveys that we'll have to make up this spring. And also we've been waiting for more detail on the construction of the port facilities, especially things like the sheet pile docks and mooring dolphins. The dredging and the placement of rock generally creates a pretty low level disturbance. It's usually pretty low frequency, low amplitude noise. And on other projects we've handled that with shutdown distances. We'll have marine mammal observers, and if the marine mammal comes within, say, 1,000 meters, so 300 meters, whatever we work out with the agency, construction will stop until the animal goes away. For the pile driving, we expect to apply for incidental harassment authorizations from NOAA. We're going to be starting work on that pretty soon. We expect to get to the early design on the sheet pile dock for the Causeway Extension later this month. And that's the direction we're going for this. Over.
Thank you, Chris. I just wanted to make sure I wasn't missing any immediate follow-up there. I just see that Gay wrote in the notes, it would be best to hire local residents as marine mammals observers. Thank you. So thank you for that comment, Gay. And at this moment, I see that we only have about 3 questions left from the chat. So I'm going to keep going here with the next question from Juliet Shepard. And she asked, given the condensed timeline and anticipating both ongoing supply chain disruptions and an increased demand for materials for infrastructure nationwide, can you speak to how the sourcing and securing aggregate, steel, and other building materials required to complete the project are expected to be addressed? And in subheading, she wrote, what may be sourced locally versus imported from the lower 48 and or from abroad? What are the timelines, et cetera? So perhaps, Jason, you can start us off. There was quite a bit in that question. And then we can teamwork through answering the question. Over.
Yeah, no, this is a very good question. And I think on minds of all the designers and I'm sure the contractors looking at this, because there has been an impact. Right now we're in discussions of how we're going to accomplish this. I think we're probably at a too early of a stage in how we're going to secure the sources to share that publicly, because I don't want to be misconstrued that we would be funding or sourcing or anything from the government side at this point. There's a lot in the works right now with how we're going to find the rock and steel. So it's on everyone's minds, and I don't have a good answer for you on that one right now. At this stage, at 35%, maybe 65 or 95, it'll be dialed in a little closer.
Jason, I'll add to that too. There's something called the Buy American Act that requires contractors, the federal government, to basically buy everything from an American source, unless it's something that's like readily available off the shelf. And in addition to that, unless they can get a waiver to buy something. So the contractors will be looking to get all those materials from the U.S. And as far as regionally, there's not necessarily going to be any contract requirement requiring a contractor to purchase that material locally, though there would likely be some efficiencies in buying the material close to the project site. Over.
Yeah, thanks, Steve. Good point.
Anybody else from the project team want to add anything?
Yeah, I just wanted to add that procurement of the materials, that's something that the Corps puts in requirements, but as long as the contractor meets those requirements, they can come up with any source that they wish. As long as it meets our requirements, they can source it from wherever they can. So that's, sourcing of material is not something that the government does unless we specify that there's going to be government provided materials, which we don't do very often. So sourcing of materials for the project, that's pretty much going to be up to the contractor's discretion, as long as they meet the government requirements and the specifications for the contract.
Thank you for adding that, Merlin. And again, I just wanted to, I'll just end answering this question or this part of answering this question with, again, we all recognize the fact that working in Alaska is unique, and that oftentimes when those materials and the requirements can be met with local sources, that saves money in both transportation costs as well as fuel to get those materials there. So just want to acknowledge that as well. Okay, I think we have 2 more questions left. The next is Diana Hacker. Please correct me if I didn't say that correctly. And she said that I would highly encourage that the Corps is utilizing the local media to advertise contracting opportunities and also do a better job advertising meetings such as this. So I think I will hand that over to our public affairs participant in this meeting. And John, if you want to discuss or make comment at the start here, please do. Over.
Hi, yeah, this is John Budnick, Public Affairs for the Alaska District. Diana, definitely appreciate the feedback, and that is something that we have and will continue to discuss internally. Ultimately, it is up to our project management team how to spend the project dollars responsibly because we are stewards of taxpayer money. But if that is something that we see value in moving forward, that is something that we can visit.
Thanks, John. And Diana, I will also add to that. This is one of the important things about these meetings is comments like yours. And thank you for speaking up. Again, as I spoke at the beginning of the meeting, we are the experts in the information that we provide, but you are the experts in your home and in your region. And so thank you so much for stating that. And the more we know about the opportunities that are potential for both providing information, sharing information, and making sure the local community is involved, the better prepared we are and be able to give those options to our project team. So thank you so much. Really appreciate that question and that comment. All right, the next question I have from the chat, and I do want to point out, we're just about 40 minutes in from the time period we came back from our break, and so we do have this meeting open until 2 p.m., so we have plenty of time to get to everybody's questions on the phone. Don't feel rushed, or if you want to ask your question instead of chat your question, we're certainly going to get to that point. And if we do stay the entire time, we will have another break in between. So just wanted to make sure everybody was aware of that. So the next chat question I have is from Todd Bostorfer again. And he asked, does any of the projects described today depend on state or local funds? If so, are those funds available? And so I'm going to go with our team first. Just to kind of explain how our processes works with our sponsors, and then perhaps, Joy, you can follow up on that question. So Jason, I'll start with you, or Steve, if you would like to start.
Okay, this is Jason. So yes, our project does depend on local funds. This is a cost-shared project, meaning that the federal government cost shares with the local sponsor. And so we will be before award of this, we would have to have all the funds in-house. And I would say even some of the future phases here would depend on some of the funding being available from not just the local standpoint, but also the federal piece as well. And so everybody knows that what we've received to date, but we would be looking for more to continue on with phase 2 and phase 3. Steve or Joy, anything to add?
Nope, nothing to add, Jason.
Thanks, Jason. This is Joy. I was trying to unmute. Yes, hi, Todd. The city, there are both state fund. Well, first off, there are state funds. The city is in discussions about having those come available. We expect to have news about our cost share by the end of the summer, maybe midsummer. We have multiple sources we are investigating for the funds. Fairly confident that we will achieve the required dollar amount by the end of the year. And that gives us about an 8-month cushion to when we need to provide that to the Corps for phase 1. A couple of the elements are invested in federal programs and, federal grant programs. And then we have other, materials and services that we're contemplating providing as work in kind. So there are a number of pieces that are moving on this front. And I think the city is getting closer to being able to identify potential sources and that dollar block and continue moving forward until we can pass the Corps the required amount well in advance of the award of the contract. Over.
Thanks, Troy.
But.
All right, thank you, Joy. I see that we have some follow-up questions. A follow-up question from Gay on that topic. Gay Sheffield is, what other funds are needed by the City of Nome and by Congress before the project starts moving rock and moving forward, et cetera? So Jason, back to you on that to begin.
Okay, so for phase 1, what would be needed would be the local funds as just described by Joy. Once those are completed by the end of the year and we can move forward with the construction contract, then that's when the rocks would start being moved, etc.
Hey, Jason, maybe this is a good opportunity to reiterate the phases and the phased approach that you presented in the meeting. And Gay just asked, can we be more specific? So perhaps this will help in getting us more specific. And how breaking it into those phases affects the funds and when and how the funds are needed for each phase to be completed. Do we need the entirety of the project funds in place to begin phase 1 or just phase 1? If that makes sense. Over. And hopefully that will help clarify for Gay.
Yeah. Okay. So I think if you go up, like everyone said, you can control what slide you're on. So I'm on slide 13, that shows the 3 phases of design. So with the money that we've received to date, the $250 million, I've said that will initiate construction. And we'll take that as far as we can. If that's phase 1 and into phase 2, and we got to request the additional funding for phase 2, then that's the point that we would do that. For us to make an award, though, and I think this will follow up there, is we have to have the local funds that are part of that cost share, or we cannot move forward with the construction project. So even though we have the money from the federal piece, we would not award a construction contract until the local services are ready to go with their funds.
May I add something? This is Glenn Stackman. First of all, I think there's a lot of information that is, or maybe I would say misinformation out in the community. The city does not have the capability of bonding this project. What Joy and the mayor and the council and I, and with our lobbyists, are working on getting this initial phase money. And that money is going to either come from assistance from the state, some federal grant money that we can use as potential matches, from potential users of the port who may want to invest in the port to facilitate the growth of their businesses. And because the award was just finally granted or acknowledged that the city of Nome was going to, the Corps had received this money to begin formal construction. You know, we now can have serious discussions with folks. The governor's and his staff has been up here, for instance, to see how we're going to come up with the initial contribution that is going to be needed by not only the port, the state, and the corporate entities. I think, and I'm going to go ahead and address another comment that I hear. The city is not going to lose control of this project. This will be a port and the city of Nome project. And I know that, I don't know if the mayor wants to comment, but I can promise you that I think I represent the council pretty well, that we have to have this assistance from other folks to make this project happen. And we will even be looking, there are times because of the significance of the project that the federal government may come up and assist by lowering the cash match. And I've been involved myself in some projects where I've worked with the Corps on development, and that 35% can be a moving target. Plus, I think everybody acknowledges there is a significant contingency on this, which I believe is 35%, and Joy can correct me if I'm wrong. So thank you. Over.
Brian, I don't know if Joy wants to follow up. Oh, Steve, go ahead.
We can't get too in detail about the cost and contingency that was just referenced, and in some instances we may have to realize that contingency to some degree. And I also see another question out there about breaking out the cost for phase 1, 2, and 3. We can't give a good ballpark in this forum, and it's still under development. We're really just focusing on phase 1 at the moment. Over.
Hi, Steve, and that's a good point, but perhaps we could explain, because I know in the different phases of our projects there's different percentages, and maybe it would help in just giving Gail that ballpark range, or that an estimate, a non-estimate. What is the percentage? And I know Glenn referenced it in his answer, but it may be good at this point in time for us to just talk about the basic in this phase, and then in the next phase construction, what is the cost percentage breakout for federal and then sponsor cost? Over.
Hey, this is Jathan. I think what we're going to go ahead and do with these financial questions, we'll take down the question and respond at a time that's more appropriate. Like Steve said, we're still developing these costs for the outlying years, and to say anything here that might be misinterpreted, I don't think that's the right thing to do for the project, and will cause more ire than it will good. So for the financial,
Jason, I think you're answering the question the way I wanted you to, is that we are in design phase right now, and so there is a current cost, and then there is, once this phase is done, we'll have a better understanding as we move forward of what those costs that I think Gay and other community members are looking for, those even broad, we can't even make the broad brush stroke answers to that now, because we're not there yet in our process. And so I think that's what you were getting to a little bit more cautiously, perhaps, than what I said, but you can correct me if I'm wrong. Go ahead. Over.
No, I would agree with you, Kendall. That's where we need to be right now.
All right. So again, Gay, thank you for those questions. And I know that you're not the only one. We had several people asking those questions. And again, we will work on being transparent as this information and as we move forward with the project. And I see that you wrote in the chat, thank you. Interesting that the funding breakdown ratio questions cannot be currently estimated in a public forum. Thank you for your answer. So for those folks on the phone that can't follow the chat, that was Dave's follow-up. So with that, I believe we have only, I have only one more chat question left for us to go through. And then what I would recommend is once we are finished with this, we take another short break just to let everybody have a little stretch time, and we'll come back and begin with President Carmen on the verbal and audio question answer time frame for the meeting. And again, we have plenty of time. So this is from what we have is W. Walgren and Will Walgren, and he's with the Dutra Group. As a marine contractor who has done numerous projects in Alaska, including at St. Paul, Dutch, and Anchorage, I would strongly encourage the Corps to hold industry days on this project. It is unlikely we would bid a project of this magnitude without making several site visits. This provides a great opportunity to identify the likely bidders for everyone involved. It also provides a great chance for us to meet the local community and understand the concerns. So I think the question is to be looked at here is, do we hold industry days, or does the sponsor hold industry days? And so Jason, again, I'm going to start with you. Over.
Okay. Yeah, no, this is definitely something that we'll want to do. I know we'll have some contracting actions, and Jennifer, I see that you're on here as well. But industry days, sources sought, market research, all that stuff is items that we love to have, and definitely getting people up on site, I think, will be extremely important, as you're saying a couple times. When this does go out to solicitation, I'd like to have everybody have equal chances to be out there a couple times, take a look at the project, and have the opportunity for your teams, your individual companies, to have time to put together and explore opportunities that you see fit. So it's definitely something we'll be looking at.
All right, thank you, Jason. And again, we'll work on using the best of our ability to get that information out as broadly as possible to the local community as well when those time periods or when those opportunities may present themselves. So I did have a couple of questions come in right after I said we were close to the end, so I want to make sure we capture those. The next question is from Juliet Shepard, and she asks, what will be the total maximum capacity of this new design for seafaring vessels, cranes, other mixed equipment, trucking, other future rail, etc., and comparison to order of magnitude in relation to its current use and capacity. So there was, again, a couple questions in there. Jason, do you want to start and then maybe go to Merlin?
Hey, Merlin, can I deflect that to you real quick, and I'll catch up at another item to take.
Okay, well, in terms of the capacity of the docks, I'm going to leave that one to P&D, but in terms of vessels that can come to the docks, what we're looking at now is currently there are 3 200-foot docks that are available. And the new deep water docks are going to be adding roughly 2,000 linear feet to the currently available dock space. So we're pretty much adding, that 2,000 feet of extra space for vessels to use. And some of the design vessels that we were looking at for developing this project include Handymax tankers that have significantly more capacity than the fuel barges that are currently in use, and also looking at bringing in other vessels, other larger vessels than what are currently in use today, just because of the greater depth that can be afforded by the deep water basin, and also the much longer docks. So the whole idea behind this phase especially was trying to get significant increases in vessel capacity to provide a cost savings for the commodities that were brought into the community and the outlying communities. As far as the the specifics on the structural component, the dock, I'm going to turn that one over to P&D to discuss that part.
Yeah, this is Brian at P&D, and Joy may want to jump in here too if there's something that she wants to add. But yeah, Merlin is right on the vessel mooring. We're looking at everything from cruise ships to fuel barges, the icebreaker class vessels and research class vessels as well. The current 35% design criteria is based largely off of the core report that was put out that kind of initiated this project, and also working with Joy and Lucas at the harbor to develop the criteria for the vessels. Obviously, you guys will have 40 feet of draft there, so you'll be able to work much deeper draft vessels than you currently have. As far as the docks are concerned, as in terms of cranes, trucking equipment, and everything like that, current middle dock is designed for a 1,000 PSF surcharge load. These docks will be designed to 1,500 PSF surcharge load. They'll also be designed to some heavier duty crane than we designed mid dock to. So you'll have a little more capacity in terms of onshore loading than you have at the current facilities in the outer harbor now. In terms of cranes, let's see, rereading the question here.
Hey, Keith.
Hey, Glenn. Is this bad time?
Yeah, I'm on a Zoom call. Can I give you?
Oh, sure. Got some chatter in the background there, so I'll wait till that clears up. As far as crane rails or anything, there's no current plans to do any crane rails built into the design at this point, although it is similar to the other question about the dredge depth. It is something that could be accommodated at a later date relatively simply or relatively easily, but it would require a little bit of reconstruction. But currently that's not in the plans. I think that covers everything. I don't know if Joy has anything that she wants to add.
No, I think you got it pretty well, Brian. Thank you.
This is Bruce Sexar from the Alaska District Corps of Engineers. There were some questions that was coming up about the cost breakdown and the cost sharing issue, and just a little bit of more information on that. Right now, as we're going through and we're developing our current working estimates, we're not allowed to release those per contracting regulations to ensure a fair and equitable bidding process. But what I can do, and I'm just going to hit send on this right now, is that we have out there on the internet all of the kind of a summarized document that includes all the cost breakdowns that were developed inside the feasibility report. And I sent a link to that right now. And those are what we consider our official numbers right now. And I'm sure everybody can understand as we're going out and doing the federal contracting process why, you know, certain numbers have to remain out of the public purview. But this does break down the cost sharing, and about the local cost sharing is about 25% of the total project cost. But please feel free to take a look at that thing, and thank you for your understanding about us maintaining, you know, the having to maintain the integrity in the bidding process.
Thank you, Bruce, for providing that information and chiming in. I think that hopefully that clears up some of the questions that remained out there. And Diana, hopefully that addresses your next question you had asked. There are estimates out there already with a total cost pegged at over $600 million is the current estimate, that much off that mark. And I think that once you look at what Bruce put into the chat here, and for those of you on the phone, again, we're capturing all of this and are more than happy to share this information with you and all of these links. Hopefully that will answer your questions, but please feel free to chime back in again when we come back and open the floor up to verbal questions or add something to the chat. I did see there was a couple of follow-up questions to Juliet's question, and she had a follow-up, and I think they were touched upon in the answer to the question about the maximum capacity, but I thought I would present them here. She followed up with what is the largest container ship that the port could accommodate, but also Chris Salerno also wrote, are there any concerns with mooring USCG polar security cutters, heavy icebreakers that will draft approximately 36 feet? So I felt those questions overlapped a little bit, so perhaps you can answer those questions, and I'm going to look to Merlin again to start us off. Over.
This is Brian at P&D. I think I can address that.
Perfect.
As far as the polar security cutters, we have in our design criteria for 35%, we have an icebreaker class of vessel that will fit that bill. And as far as the container ships, I don't specifically have a specific container ship that's in the design criteria, but the largest tonnage vessel that we're currently looking at is around 68,000 short tons. So any vessel that was in that range of tonnage, the fender systems and the fender systems would be able to accommodate in general. I think that's all I have on that one. I think that addresses both of them.
Hi, everyone. This is Kelly. I believe Kendall just lost audio, so it might take a minute for her to reconnect. Oh, perfect.
Speaking of technical difficulties, I just got cut off, but was able to call back in. So hopefully nobody else has experienced that. Thank you, Kelly, for jumping in. So I didn't hear the rest of that answer, but I'm sure it was well thought out and hopefully addressed the questions I heard right at the end. I think that addressed both those questions. So I just wanted to fall back on the one last thing I see in the chat here at this time, again from Diana, following up on her question. And again, reading it word for word for those people on the phone is we are aware of that study and have read it. And I believe she's referring to what Bruce linked in the chat. And then she says, I think the public is entitled to know how much the city is on the hook for. And so I'm going to turn this over to our co-sponsors and co-hosts here. And Joy, do you want to start with you, or is there someone else that you feel is more appropriate to touch upon answering this question? Over.
Thanks, Kendall. Yeah, I was looking through the cost engineering appendix of the main report because the costs were listed in the main report, Deanna. So I knew, and there were several times that that same cost spread, it's a table, was presented at the council meeting. So I'm looking for something that I can send you that you can reference. I will keep looking. I know, and it's what was on, what was released publicly on the Corps website. I will.
Okay, thank you, Joy.
You bet.
Say Joy, this is Jan.
Yes, Jan.
Table 37 in the report is the cost share summary table that would probably provide what is being looked for.
Thank you. I'll pull that and post it and email it to the folks that the media folks on our end.
Thank you, Joy. So Diana, we're going to put a hold on your question right now until we find the information that we think can address the questions and the information that you desire. And I see you followed up there. My question was, what was said before is no longer applicable, meaning that the numbers have changed. And perhaps we can just address that. And again, not necessarily going to exact numbers, but address, has there been changes in numbers? And Diana, please continue chatting and helping me clarify. I am rephrasing just simply so that everybody who may not be following the chat can know where we're at, but also for those people on the phone too. So please feel free to clarify further.
Hey, this is Jathan. And so I think everyone can find, it's on, everybody knows that planning number. And so what we're talking about now, what Bruce is saying is there's some items in that cost working estimate that we have to hold internal. So we have the planning number, the overall close to 600 million, like you're saying. Now as we go into the design efforts, we start to refine, we develop and start to look at ways that might save money. So each one of these phases is going to go through a value engineering exercise where an independent team comes in, looks at it, and says, "Hey, we think you can do this and this and this to save money." So that's what we're trying to hold right now, is that we have the programmed amount, but now we have to refine that amount, and our goal would be to see where we could save some of the money. So that's what you're probably addressing right there.
Thanks, Jason. I'll also point out that we're at the 35% design level of just this phase one. So while we might have just gotten some recent survey data, we haven't fully rolled it into our plans and specifications and come up with refined quantities for material. So, and it's great that we're having this meeting early on the process, but the disadvantage is there's not additional information. Over.
Thank you, Steve and Jason. And again, I'm going to reiterate something that hopefully I've said throughout the meeting, but if I haven't, I'm going to say it for the first time here. This is not the last time that we are going to be available to you in the community to ask questions and to get updates and information. And so, if we don't have the exact answer to any of your questions at this time, it's one of the reasons why we have our contact information on this slide, and it's a very boring slide, but we wanted to leave it up as long as possible for folks to be able to get that information so that as we move through this process, and we may be able to answer some of these questions a little bit more acutely or with some actual numbers or details, we most certainly will share it when we can. So I'm looking at the current chat right now, and I am cognizant of the fact we've been on the phone for about an hour, but I think that we can get through these next couple of questions. Juliet Shepard directed a question directly to Port Director, and she asked, can you say something about the current type and volume of northern route sea traffic the port currently handles, freight, cruises, et cetera? So Joy?
Yes, thank you. This is Joy. Hi, Juliet. We see periodically some of the cruise ships coming through prior to the pandemic that would head north out of Nome, and we have quite a few adventure folks, adventure yachts, large sailboats, research vessels that we'll see either going north in early summer or coming back south in late summer. So, right now, any of the cargo, LNG, the big tankers, they're over on the Russian side. We don't necessarily see them. Occasionally there's a tanker offshore. Well, let me back that up. Occasionally there's a large tanker that I believe is servicing Western Alaska coming by doing crew changes with our small boats, serving as pilot boats. But there are typically quite a few tankers running up and down the coast on our side, fueling Western and Northern Arctic Alaska. I'm not aware that any of those tankers are going through the Northwest Passage. So, yeah, I mean, unless that prompts another question, we're not seeing much of the Northern Sea Route traffic at all. At least not yet. Over.
Thank you, Joy. Does anybody want to follow up on what Joy had to say, even though the question was right to her?
David Ridge here with Crowley. I would say the Northern Sea Route, that's above Russia. It's not the Northwest Passage. So in that reference, as Joy had mentioned, those vessels would normally be coming up through off Asia, up, across Japan, and then up around Russia, and then direct through the Bering Strait to the Northern Sea Route. So I doubt we would see any of that traffic over in our area, especially since there's a lot of areas to avoid. The Northwest Passage has not been yet commercialized, and it still has problems with ice during even the summer months. We don't see much traffic back and forth, just like say some cruise ships that are going, and then some one-way traffic not one-way, round trip traffic that's going to some of the mines and then coming back down, but generally those head back direct to Asia from that location.
Thank you, David, for adding that. Okay. All right, there's a couple more things happening here, but I do see, let me get to the question from David Ridge, does the city have the necessary community support or ability/right to issue a permit for the construction of the new East Causeway? So that's a question for the city.
Yeah, that came up in some of the initial discussions up there in Nome, and some residents were complaining they would lose certain rights of view and property values, and I just wonder if that would impact the ability to actually complete that phase of the project, or has that been all settled out?
Yes, Kendall, I can take that to some degree. Hi, David. I believe we have significant community support for the project. We haven't had a large amount of complaints about the construction of the Eastern Causeway. It's not going to be very tall. I mean, it's what they've got it at now. Merlin would have to think. I think it's more like a +8 right now. The tallest I would anticipate it to be, and I haven't looked at the seaward side height elevation on the rock, but the existing causeway on the west side is a +28. So I would think we would be that or less. I don't know that that's going to obstruct views, but I would recommend that those folks that have concerns bring them to the Port Commission, the City Council, or the administration, and we can address those. I'm not aware of any permitting. I know that the Corps is allowed to, remove and replace the breakwater structure through their federal, forgot the term now, that they have for, just utilizing land right there. The city has the tide land. So, like I said, go ahead.
Navigation servitude.
Yes. Yes. Thank you.
You're looking forward to.
Yes. Thank you.
Go ahead.
So, the city doesn't want to build anything that, someone's going to have a huge complaint about, but they need to come talk to us, and so we can discuss and address the complaint. We need an eastern causeway. It needs to be built to protect the existing inner harbor. And the fact that it's, we're going to get an additional 2 docks within that minus 28th existing outer harbor, that's going to address the congestion and the delays significantly, and allow vessels to be inside, Coast Guard, small cruise ships, research vessels. They'll be able to stay in port when the storms come, because they'll be significantly protected. So I see the East Causeway as a critical need, but we're happy to address anybody's concern about where it's going to be built. Yeah, but I don't know that there would be any kind of permit there, David.
Yeah, no, I just, I'd hate to see something derailed at the last minute, but I agree that's, that's going to add value to the port. And actually, anybody on that beachfront that is now going to be afforded additional protection from the ocean, especially with rising sea levels, so it's going to be a benefit to all those homes there. And we're definitely looking forward to that added space and the ability to, uh, husband a vessel, in port without taking up dock space for someone who wants to move cargo as well.
Exactly. Thanks for that.
Great question, David. I just wanted to come back to the question on the vessel traffic that we had previously to the last question. Gabe just put in the comment, and again, so people are following, she wrote that the 3rd week of January 2022, we had 1,000-foot long tanker, 2 nuclear-powered icebreakers, a diesel icebreaker, a 615 feet heavy lift vessel, a 835-foot nuclear-powered container ship, and a 400-plus cargo vessel, transit north and southbound. These ships are being seen in the Strait by Bering Strait communities. And so that's important information to share. Thank you for sharing that, Gay. And unless somebody would like to address any of that or comment to that, I just, we're not there, as I said before, and this is why these community meetings are so important for us to be able to gain this information.
So David Rich, again,
oh, go ahead.
I would say that we're going to see in the Bering Straits an increased and probably a phenomenal increase in that north-southbound traffic in the Northern Sea route. Even year-round, Russia has committed to year-round use of that traffic lane to save a lot of fuel and time for commercial vessels. And they are building a significant fleet of icebreakers to accommodate that, and launching them all the time, including the nuclear icebreakers that are capable of pushing that big ice that forms over the course of the winter. But I think one of the original questions was, would this deep water port support those vessels? And what we understand is no, it would not, and it was not intended to. It's this port infrastructure changes to support the Western Alaska hub, the hub of Nome that supports the outlying communities. So that was, what I was pertaining to is the Northern Sea Route vessels would not be coming across to the American port to utilize their services.
Thanks for that clarification. Does anyone from the core team want to add anything before we take a break?
This is Joy. David hit the nail on the head. We're not going to see any of that traffic, but I see that, we've been advised from some of the larger fleet that can only anchor offshore that the fleet quantity is going to continue to grow. We're going to continue to see more vessels offshore Nome that are, too large to utilize facilities. So as David mentioned, the hub support that is in demand now is only going to continue to grow, and we'll see great benefit from this project.
Well, thank you, Joey. And I am going to Gay had one comment that I think will springboard us into our next section here of our kind of verbal back and forth, which does not mean that you can't continue to write questions in the chat. Please do. But I do want to allow all of our participants to have just a quick 5-minute break to redo your coffee, fill up your coffee, or whatever you need to do. I also know that people are joining and leaving and coming back to this meeting. And so I wanted to reiterate that we are recording this meeting and that we will post it online, and that also within that recording, you will be able to have access to these chat questions if you want to go back and look at who was asking the questions or the chat. And I also reiterate, because I know that many people are familiar with WebEx, and that you can private chat people. When we record the chat, it does not record any private chats. It just records the chats to everyone. So feel free to use the chat as widely as you would like. And so with that, unless there's any other statements, I'd like to offer that we take a 5-minute break and come back around 12:28, giving people a minute or two. And when we resume, we'll start off with President Carmen. All right, everyone, 5 minutes. Thank you. All right, everyone, it's 12:28, but I'll do some talking here for a minute and let everybody kind of calmly come back in or leisurely come back into the meeting. A couple of things as we move to a more question and answer time period, or open up the floor for question and answers for people to unmute and mute themselves.